I didn't see it. We're good to go. I did not handle the situation well. I don't regret it, but I did not handle that situation well. Yeah. All right. I will call this May 24th, 2022 meeting of Lawrence County Retirement Board to order. Would all please rise for the pledge of allegiance, followed by a brief moment of silence. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America, and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Please maintain for a brief moment of silence. Thank you. Vanessa, please call the roll.
Controller Prestipine,
Here.
Deputy Treasurer Chalella. Here. Commissioner Boyd.
Here. I'll note we do have a quorum. Any public comments? Mercifully, no.
Surprising.
Minutes from February 15th, 2022. And I'll let you guys take a look over those, and then I'll take a motion to approve or make any changes necessary and expedient.
I'll make a motion to approve.
We have a second? We have a motion and a second. Any further discussion? Hearing none, question on the motion. All in favor, please signify by saying aye. Aye. All opposed, same sign. Motion carries. Sarah, how's the fun?
All right. So let's just do, well, we're just going to talk a little bit about what happened in the quarter and how that reflected in your performance and how the fund did, and then we'll do a little bit of an update with a lot of things happening in the news. If you turn to Exhibit 1, just real quick, an update on Marquette. I want to point out that we have been hiring a lot of performance analysts and client analysts. And Kate Armstrong is actually listed there. She's now working with the team. I think you probably see weekly emails from her. Really enjoy working with her. And then we're at 99% client retention rate, $356 billion under advisement. And we're celebrating our 36-year business. And I just also want to point out the invitations are going out February, September 23rd for our symposium in Chicago. We do have clients who do come to that. It's a great event. And if you are interested, just get in contact with me. A lot of people do it as a due diligence. They'll come and see, the headquarters, everything. So, I know weekends are really busy, but this is a nice event Thursday to Friday. So we open that up to all of our clients. All right, let's turn the tab. Let's talk a little bit about what's going on in this market environment. And we look at what happened in the first quarter, and that's Exhibit 2, page 10. We looked at what happened to real GDP, which plunged and it actually went negative in the first quarter, the quarterly. If you look at that graph, you can see that, look, year over year, we know that we had the first quarter of 2020, that day in March 2013 when the market started, then it started going up, and now it's going down. And we see that economists expect economic growth to rebound for the rest of 2022. That has changed, obviously, and what's been going on with this market. We look at what's happened with rates. We know the Fed has come out. It's almost a barbell effect. They raise interest rates, trying to cut out inflation, but in turn, we're almost on the brink of a recession. We hit the bear market last Friday. When we talk about that and the inflation, and we see interest rates. Now, they came out and they said they're consistently do it. Every meeting they have, they're going to do 50 basis points. If they can't get inflation under control, we know it hit at 8.3, an all-time high, month over month, in April of this year when it came out. We have a couple of things that are really starting to affect us too. We talk about what's happened with China, their zero COVID policy. So as a huge exporter with that, they have had a very slow, almost a shutdown in some senses, but it's actually not working, that zero COVID. So we've seen that. We look at where this graph is. We always put this in the short-term interest rates at the bottom of page 10. And you can see the future markets are thinking where the Fed is on March 22 projection and the futures market saying, look, they're going to go higher than what they're saying they're going to do on their We look at yield curve spreads, the remarkable shift in the Fed's policy outlook. The spread between the 10-year and 2-year yields, for example, ended at the first quarter in year zero, while the spread between the 10-year and 3-year yield has actually steepened forward rates into anticipation this spread will invert in the coming quarters. We've actually started to see that happen. And then we talk about consumer confidence, and look at the bottom there, minus the current conditions. So we look at what happened is consumer confidence, and we've looked at what's happened with consumers discretionary. One of the big moves in the market last week was Walmart and Target did not hit their expectations. And that consumer discretionary makes up 2/3 of GDP. When they're not meeting it, so what they're saying is people are going shopping while they're in this place, they're actually getting food, they're not buying the TV, they're not buying the coffee maker. So you're gonna start seeing a shift in those expectations. So we look at what happened, consumer-minded confidence obviously went down in 2002. Then we look at what happened in 2020 in that graph at the bottom, the green. Look how it's gone up, and then look how fast it's gone down. So we're looking at this graph, you can see it's 4 years all the way up to the bottom, and then the last 2 years, it has really shifted. You turn the page, we look, and I think this is, and we go back to the consumer confidence, and we look at what's happened outside. Basically, the global economy is being affected too. We'll talk about that in your performance for, how we see it in your international and your global managers. The European consumer confidence obviously has dipped here. We also have the Russian invasion of Ukraine. It could have been quick and fast. It really didn't. It's dragging on a lot longer than what the market had kind of priced into it. And we look at that graph on the gray. Everything's down there. And we look on the top, now you look at the China PMI composite. So China has had a huge contraction, and it has really started to do it quarter by quarter. So for the first quarter, and we'll look at what's happened there, is that they have really dipped down. And we talk about the asset class performance on page 13. U.S. equities for the first quarter were down 5.3, but trailing 12 months, they were up 11.9. This has changed drastically in the last couple of weeks. But we look at commodities up 25.5, and then we look at 49.3. REITs were down 5.3, but one trailing year was 23.6. But we're going to talk about real estate because that has really done well for you diversifying in that. And then if you turn the page, look at the consumer sector. We look at consumer discretionary. Look at energy, 39 versus 6. And then we look at financials were down, but for the trailing 12 months, they were at 13%. Value stocks, which has helped, and it really helped you with your April performance that I handed out. We'll look at that. Top growth stocks for the first time in the quarters of last year. And then before that, for about the trailing 4 years, growth stocks were really outperforming value. But we know that people tend to go to value stocks there. Internationally, it's interesting. So when we look at when the market goes down, when it starts to go back up, emerging markets actually seem to take off much better in the upswing. So you do have a slight overweight to emerging markets that kind of, was a little bit part of the performance for the first quarter. But you have to also position yourself. You have to be protective in the down. But you do want some of your active managers to position themselves and to be able to take when the market starts to go up. There. Are there any questions? Good. Let's go to the frame, talk a little bit about what you have done. So at the end of March, you were at 97.9. You did for the quarter, we're down 4% versus the policy index of 4.4. So you're ahead of the benchmark in a down market. We've always said that, in an up market, If you're at 9 and market does 10, great, you've done 9%. And a down market is really where we want to protect you, and that has a lot to do with a lot of the diversification you have done as well. For the trailing 12 months, you had a return of 6.9 and a gain of 6.5. Since inception, and I think this is important to realize, you're at 8.3 annualized with a gain of 50 million. So you're meeting your actuarial assumption. We know that this is built for the long term, so then maybe the next year, 2 years, it's going to be a little bit hard, but going forward, we have done that, and that was one of the reasons why we did the infrastructure, we did the real estate, because we know that the markets, as of April, both fixed income and equities are double-digit negative returns. It's only happened 3 times in the history of this market. We look at the positive attribution for the quarter. U.S. equity manager Eaton Vance, global manager MFS. Negative attribution for the quarter was fixed income. Your real estate composite did 7.3%, and for the trailing 12 months did 27.9%. And remember, you funded that real estate composite with equities and fixed. And as I said, equities and fixed are now down in negative returns. That real estate has really helped you. We knew long term, we were saying, 5 to 7% annualized return. That's great with real estate. We know real estate had a huge issue in the beginning of COVID when COVID hit, because everybody went out. The real estate managers still had some retail exposure. Now what's happening is that we're seeing real estate has gone into storage, and they've gone into industrial because everybody orders online, so you need warehouses to get it. So these real estate funds have slowly shifted, and that's starting to pay out for them. And then we made some portfolio changes with the international manager selection. And what we did in the last couple of weeks is when I was reviewing your fixed income, you were basically almost indexed with a little bit. You've gotten to the point in size that we think that it was time to bring in an active manager. It's probably changed the overall cost of the portfolio by a couple basis points, but we really thought that in this market environment, you want an active manager that is not just a mutual fund that can go and place, trades. We like them, Season Key. I don't know if you've heard them before. They have like 30 other county clients that come to our OCIO due diligence, and they're a Pennsylvania-based firm. So that's one of the things we like to do, if we can bring a Pennsylvania-based firm in to this. So when looking at it, it just seems really makes sense for us, and they have a long track record of good, solid, consistent performance. Are there any questions so far?
What is our percent funded right now?
I believe, we didn't get the new actuarial report yet, the last one, I think, I want to say 102.
So in other words, we're still, even with the drop in the market, we're still in good shape. Keep in mind that's the data.
I didn't get the one based on last year, yet. It's great. I just talked to the guy, on Thursday last week, they were still finishing up. The prior year, I believe, I think it was like 102.
So even with the market drop, we're still in good shape.
Yeah, you're going to be in good shape for a while. Plus, remember, your ADC is going to be based off of last year. Next year is where you're probably going to have a little bit more an increase possibly on there. But you have lowered your actual rate of return.
We're paying $250,000 a year for it right now out of the general fund. I'll take that every day of the week. If we have to pay a little bit more next year, $250 this year, I'll take it every day of the week.
Right, and that was really good with some of the moves you made. Let's turn to page 28, and we're going to talk a little bit about the performance there. Your total equity composite outperformed negative 5% versus 5.4. For the trailing 12 months, it did 8.6. We look at Eaton Vance for the trailing 12 months, it's 7.5 versus 0.30. And then that is one of the reasons it's very hard to find a manager that's going to do the S&P 500, like a large cap manager. So we feel that the small cap is really where you want to diversify, and that's actually done very well for you. Dodge & Cox Global, We put them in of August of last year. They were 2.3% positive while the market was down 1%. And you can remember that last quarter when we looked at Dodge and Hawks, when the market's really, really up, they kind of tend to lag, but they really kind of protect you on the downside. AB Global Core Equity has struggled a little bit. We are actually not concerned with them. It's just some of the picks they've had. Artisan, you can look and say that's down 13, minus 8.4. Consistently 5, 7, 10 years, they've had very strong returns. Look at MFS Low Volatility, did a negative 2.7 versus 3%, but trailing 1 year, they've done 11.2 versus 8.6. And then I wanted to talk a little bit about your non-US equity composite. You know, it did lag a little bit. We made changes in January. We added Harding, Lover, and Wellington. And just so you know that that's where you're looking at when we bought those, and you say, well, they're really down. If you actually look next, they're great managers, and the long term, they have done extremely well. It's just the brief shot. We also know that they're more heavily weighted on looking at the emerging markets, and we expect them to go up. Real estate has averaged 8.5% since March 2016. You can see that your managers have really done a nice job. And then we added TA Realty Core Property Fund because you got to the point where you were large enough, we diversified, and that did 8.2 versus 7.2. When we look at defensive equity, we put that in last year. That is a nice play on the market, and it's only down 2.3, and then Parametrics is only down 1.9. So when you look at all of those in the market, and then Parametrics since October is 0.70 positive versus the benchmark of the negative 0.40. All right, and then you look at fixed income. The fixed income just struggled a little bit. We have your high yield bond. We're still happy with that. You've got a tiny percent, 0.50 of that. We added Baird Aggregate and the Fidelities. What we've done is we've restructured that, taken a lot of the index out, and we've put CSWK in there. So we'll talk a little bit about performance, and we'll be able to see that. And right now, your fee summary, you're all in for 37 basis points. So that is a very low fee considering how diversified this fund is. Any questions? All right, so let's just get a quick update through April on performance. A little bit of a different issue, but I think what really is a telltale sign, at the end of April, you're 92.2 million. So you've had, you're down about 9.4, that's on the handout here, they passed out.
No.
But your policy index is 10.5. So you're over 110 basis points ahead. So when the market starts to go back up, you're not trying to get back more than the market. Your US equity composite was down negative 8.2 versus 9. Your globals, negative 7.8 versus 8. And then you look at your non-US equities are starting to get back a little bit. We're still very comfortable with them. And then if you turn the page, real estate year-to-date 7.3, we just don't get the monthly number. It's when we run this, it takes a little bit of time. Infrastructure composite, and I think this is, we finally got your infrastructure, it's right there. JP Morgan, positive so far, it's 1 month, you'll be able to see that. The plan was for infrastructure and real estate was, remember, is to take out the volatility of the plan, lower it a little bit, diversify, and I think that's going to do very well for you. And then defensive equity was down about 5%, and then US fixed income was down about 3.8.
Keep in mind, though, this is everywhere right now. I mean, I want to make that comment. This is not exclusive to Lawrence County's retirement fund. The markets are underperforming, everywhere right now. It's, and the other thing I wanna say is, like we talked about 5 minutes ago, pension fund's still strong. You know, it's still well funded, well over what most government pension funds are at. And like you said, Sarah, we're playing the long game here. It'll recover.
It is, and also look at it, I mean, you know, if the market's down 10.5, you're only down 9.4. You've done what you're supposed to do over the years, making those great decisions about diversifying. And yes, there's nowhere to hide in this market, but the plan is we knew this was coming.
Yep.
It wasn't gonna just keep going. I would love for it to come up, you know, we have every year of my career, so I don't have, you know, but walking in and saying, look, this is how we built this, you're in a good shape, that, you know, the participants, if they ask you a question, you know, yes, you've done what you're supposed to do, you're really protecting it in this very volatile market. Now, we've had a lot of volatility, we are sending out a letter to everybody. We are looking at these plans, you know, you're getting your weekly asset allocation. All of us consultants are on the phones with research. I mean, we are really trying to keep on top of it. The best thing is, you know, not panic. We're guided by your asset allocation, takes out the emotion, but with the OCIO, we can move you at any time. If we really see it going down, remember in COVID, it inched you up. You know, just kind of didn't say, okay, you're down 5% to your target, we're gonna bring you up 5. We did 2, 2.5, and then did that. So we will probably put that in place. We've been reviewing that. And the only other thing I have is, as you know, Marquette bought Pierce Park 5 years ago. You signed a thing saying that you knew that. SEC has come back and said that they want all of our clients to be on the Marquette contract. So you're on a Pierce Park with an addendum to that. So I'd like to send the new contract over, and if you can sign that, that would be great. There's nothing changed. Obviously, your fee schedule is guaranteed. You can fire us in the 30-day notice, and there's no clause. It's a more updated, it's got a POA because we can only have discretion and everything. And it's just, they want you on Marquette letterhead.
That has to go through, we've never done a contract as long as I've been here through the retirement board for anything. That has to go through Board of Commissioners, right? Or does that come from the retirement board?
That's a good question.
We'll ask Jason.
I think retirement board hired us, so it's all 5 signatures.
Yeah, the question is.
I think it has to go through retirement board regardless, whether it has to go through the commission after that, I don't know.
Because the county code firmly places contractual all the way at the hands of the Board of Commissioners. We just never, as long as I've been here, we've just never done
I
this.
mean, I think it has to go through retirement board initially.
Yeah.
Whether it goes to the commissioners after that, I'm not sure.
So I'll send it to you, Dave, does it make sense to
Yeah,
send it
that's
to
fine.
you, and then just let me know and what you need me to do.
We'll figure it out. It's not a big, it's just
It's
procedural
not
stuff.
just, right, and it's obviously no changes, just a little bit of different wording on that.
No, I don't see that being a problem.
Great. Are there any other questions about the market or the plan?
I think we're in pretty good shape. Thank you for keeping that pithy. Appreciate that. Any public comments additional? I will adjourn. Takes care of the quarterly. Thank you for coming up, Sarah. We always appreciate having you here.
No problem. I think I'm coming back up in August.
In July?
Yeah. I'll see you in July. So it's going to, where's it, Scranton? The treasurers. Really have a treasurer's thing?